Hi, I'm Joe Nelson, Assistant Director at TAPS This Valley Works. We're home to Roanoke Area's Virginia Cares program, and today I'm here to talk to you about family and children and their importance in your life. What I'd like to do at the beginning is to have you just think to yourself about family. What kind of memories does it bring to you? Good, bad, scary, sad? Who was in your family? Who's in your family now? How has your family changed since you've been incarcerated? Who is it that's a role model for you? Has your family changed? Have you added members, subtracted members? All these things that happened over the last few years are important as we look at family and children in your life. Each of you will probably have a different answer, but it's critical to know who your family is or who you consider to be in your family. So take a minute, think about it, write it down, and then we'll continue on. Now that you've had time to think about it, let's talk about who your family members are. Your mother, your father, are they still around? Have they passed on? Did they visit you in prison? Okay. Men, for you, think about your dad. Was he a good father? Is he the father you want to be like? For you women, what about your mom? Was she a strong, supportive, caring, loving mom that you want to be just like? Or was she totally off and away from you, and so you don't want to raise your family like she raised you? Okay. Once we have these answers, we can move forward with building a relationship with our current family. You know, it's really hard to believe, but most people base what they want their family to look like on TV. Not their mother, not their father, but that ideal image of what the family is supposed to look like. Now, I'm older than most of you, or at least some of you, and when I think back to TV parents, I think, oh, they were perfect. Anytime their child had anything, they were there. Mom always looked beautiful. She always was dressed well, even when she was cleaning house. Well, now that I'm an adult and in a family, I'm like, there's no way I can look that good and still be mom and run the errands and run the kids and do everything I need to do. So I think we need to take a look at who our family role model is. If it's the TV, we probably need to get rid of that idea. I don't think anybody's family can match that picture of TV family. So where else can you get ideas on what your family should look like? Some other people look at music. Some read magazines or the newspaper. But in reality, those aren't good role models for us. The best role model for what a family should look like is to think back to an adult, whether it's your mom, your dad, grandmother, grandfather, a teacher, a relative. Maybe it's a friend's parent that you always thought you'd want to have around because they were the good parent, they were the one who was available. And pick that adult that was important in your life and use that adult as your role model while we go down this search to figure out how to be a better family person. Okay. It's a lot easier looking and watching a human than it is watching somebody on camera who has had take after take after take to make themselves look good being a parent. Parenting isn't easy. It's even harder when you've been away from your children for a long time. So you have to give yourself a break. You have to realize it's going to take time. You know, when you were incarcerated, your life changed. When you were incarcerated, your family members' lives changed. Their life is not the same as it was when you went on the inside. And so when you come out, you can't just pick up the pieces right where you left. You may be able to still have a relationship with them, but they've grown, they've aged. You've grown, you've aged. And so you have to identify what it is that's important and how to be the parent for where they are now. Think about it. What changes have you made? What's different in you? Before you were incarcerated, were you that parent that you wanted to be? Or were you the guy running the streets at night? Were you the loving, caring mother? Or were you the one that was gone all the time? Again, based on who you were when you went in and the changes you made, you'll have to help your children and your other family members see that new you, the better you, the improved you, the you that's come out of incarceration, not the you that got in trouble and ended up incarcerated. Now that you've thought about yourself and where you've come, let's talk about those skill sets you have to be an effective parent or to be an effective family member. First, you need self-awareness. Before you could do anything to work with your kids and with your other family members, you have to know who you are. Are you okay? Are you happy? What are your personality characteristics? How do you deal with anger, stress, fear? How do you deal with change? You have to be able to know yourself before you can know and interact with your family. The second skill is the ability to care for yourself. So you need to not only understand how you interact and how you think and how you feel, but you need to know how to take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and above all, physically. Because you have to take care of yourself so that you'll feel up to and able to take care of other people. So the first two steps are knowing yourself and taking care of yourself. Now that sounds really easy, but they're probably the two hardest steps you'll face in reuniting your family. We get so caught up in chasing after the kids or wanting to do for them or wanting to have the money you need to buy whatever your kids want that you sometimes forget you have to spend time, energy, and money on yourself. But you do. If you don't have a place to live and you aren't eating, you can't do your kids justice. So take care of yourself first. Other portions of the program that you're working through discuss taking care of yourself. The third key skill in being successful with family is your actual parenting skills. Now, it's not being a mom or a dad, it's actually parenting. Those hands-on skills. Do you know how to feed children? Do you know how to clothe your child? Do you know what to do when your child is hurt or injured? Okay. Basic health and health-related skills that you need to be able to physically care for your child. Do you know how to tell your child you love them? You know, sometimes that's the hard part, is just reaching out there and saying, hey, I love you. I screwed up. I wasn't here for most of your life. Once you make that step and are honest about it, your kids could see that and move forward. So parenting skills. And if you've forgotten all those skills, you may want to go back and take a parenting class or get a referral to another program to look at that. The fourth skill you need is relationship skills. And again, there will be another segment in the program that you're involved in dealing directly with relationship skills. But I want to say this to you, and I want you to hear it. The reality is, if you've had children with someone else, no matter what your relationship with that person is, you can't be an effective parent, you can't be a loving parent, you can't be a caring parent unless you can figure out how to tolerate the other person, the other parent. And that's hard. In a lot of cases, you really don't have a relationship with the other parent. But it's crucial that you can agree to disagree. It's crucial that you make the efforts with the other parent to ensure that they will let you see your children, they will let you be with your children, that they will understand you want to help and care. Even if you're living with that other parent, you've been incarcerated, you've been gone, that parent has had to adapt and change to help themselves and their children make it through. You can't just come back home and jump into the family and take charge and move that other parent out. So whether you're living with the parent of your children or not, you need to learn to work with them. You need to learn to talk about the kids. You need to learn not to be vindictive, and you need to learn not to argue with them about what's best for the kids. Now, how do you do that? And that's probably the toughest piece to being a parent. Okay? You don't have to agree with the other parent. You don't have to like the other parent. But when you're in front of the children, you need to make sure that you agree. So if there's a rule in the house, it's the rule. And when your children come to see you, they still have to live with the rule. It's critical you agree on common ground. Now, that common ground could be your values, could be your morals, it could be a set of household rules, or maybe it's a set of rules that you and the other parent have designed solely for the kids when they're with you. Whatever it is, you need to agree to it and stick to it. It's much more fun to be the fun parent, to be the one who gets to give the presents and to do the cool stuff. But you lose the respect of your children if you don't hold that line. So, whatever your relationship is with the other parent, before you reach out to your kids, you need to reach out to that person. Help them understand that you want to be part of your kids' lives, but that you want to do it the right way, and that you respect the fact that while you were incarcerated, they had to take care of your children, and that they moved on and your children moved on. If you can remember these few things, then you can be successful. Again, you may never like the other person. You all may never reunite and be together as a family, but you can work as a family to raise the kids. Another skill you need to have. What's another skill? Okay, being a parent is one thing, but being a mother or a father is a different. So in addition to your parenting skills, your hands-on skills, you also need to understand what your role is to your kids. Are you the male role model? Or maybe you're the female role model? What is that thing that's unique to a dad that a mother just can't give a child? So you not only need to be a good parent, but you need to be a good father or a good mother. You need to share those things that are considered feminine or masculine with your kids. Fathers have a lot of responsibilities that mothers never do. In most situations, fathers teach what it is to be a strong man, what it is to be a dad. No matter how great the mom is, the children still want to know that. So based on who you are, you have another job. It's to identify what that person, what that young man should look like, what that young female should look like, and to help them realize that you may not have done it right, but that there is a role out there that they should honor and respect, and a role and a path they should take. So, self-care, self-awareness, parenting, relationships, and then probably the hardest skill to learn is the skill to accept the fact that you can't be perfect. As parents, we all want to be right. We all want to do it right. We all want to do it better than our parents. I think over the years, I've always heard people say, I want my children to be better off than I was. I want to do a better job of raising my kids, of setting those expectations for them. And the reality is, you want that, but you have to be willing to admit that you aren't perfect. No parent's perfect. Whether incarcerated or not incarcerated, there's no such thing as a person or as a perfect person. There's no such thing as a perfect parent or a perfect partner. So you need to allow yourself to make mistakes. You need to be willing to laugh at yourself, to admit, hey, I messed this up royally. Let's go back and do it again. But you need to give yourself that time to learn, to grow, to get used to what it's like not being incarcerated, to get used to what it's like being part of a family. And then you need to give your kids and the other parent that same space, that same time. Because she or he's probably messed it up too. They may not want to admit it, but they probably have. Your kids may not have a clue how to act around you or what to do with you around. They may think you're a really strange person now that you've come back from jail. Or maybe they really like this person, but they aren't sure it's their dad or their mom. So give everybody time and space, but remember, work together. Together you can have a successful family. One of the most difficult topics I want to cover now is the topic of discipline. When you think of the word discipline, what do you think of? For many of us, discipline equals punishment. If you think about it, sometimes in the court system and in the correctional system, you're being punished for something you did wrong. And it's really critical, particularly when you're talking about dealing with family members, to remember that discipline is not equal to punishment. To discipline actually means to teach or to guide. To teach, to guide. So you want to approach it really differently. How is it best handled? Well, in reality, every person has differences. And so for discipline to be effective in your family, you have to know your children. You have to know your family members. You have to know what's important to them, because your goal in your discipline is to teach them or guide them through. A personal story on discipline, and my parents thought they had the magic key to it. And in most cases, my sister and I were fairly well behaved and didn't get disciplined often. But I remember very clearly as a child, my parents would try and give my sister and I both the same discipline. So when we did something really bad, my mother would look up at us and always say, go to your room and think about it, and don't come back out until you know what you did wrong and you can tell me. Well, for me, it was torture. It truly was a punishment to be locked in a room by myself for any amount of time. And so I rarely spent more than 2 or 3 minutes in a room. I would go in, go, gee, what's the answer Mom wants? Okay. May not be the true answer of what I thought I did wrong, but I was going to think about it and come up with an answer that would be acceptable. What was it I did wrong that upset my mom? And so it was fairly quick, fairly painless. Now, did it teach me not to do the thing again? We can argue that point. Probably the first few times it did. But in reality, in my mind, my job was to figure out what to tell back to Mama that would make her happy and get me out of the room. So I'm not sure it was a really effective tool, other than it helped me think about other people and it helped me talk. My sister was a very different creature, totally different personality from me. And so when she was punished and sent to her room to think, she at times could disappear for hours. I remember one day she had been gone about 3 hours, and my mom sent me down to the room to find out what was going on. And she thought, wow, she must really be putting a lot of serious thought into this. She must really be concentrating on figuring out what she did wrong. Well, my sister loved books. And I got back down to the room, and she had read an entire novel. Had she thought about what she had done wrong or what to say to Mama? No. She saw it as a good way to escape, to not have to do chores, and to go lock in and do her favorite thing, which was reading. Was it discipline? No. It was an attempt at discipline, but it didn't work. It didn't help my sister look at what she needed to change. Okay. So discipline needs to be something you develop based on who the person is. Now, probably if my mother had sent me to the room and told me to go read a book and that I couldn't come out and do anything else until I had finished reading an entire book, that probably would have been discipline to me, because it would have felt like, oh, I can't do anything I want. And so I would have really focused on how not to do it again. For my sister, being locked in by herself was great. She loved it. I often think my mom probably should have made my sister go out in public or go do something with another person in order to discipline her, because that's not what she liked. Okay? So first, discipline has to match the person you're trying to teach the lesson to. If it doesn't teach the lesson you intend for it to, it's not really discipline and it doesn't really work. Second, when you're looking at discipline, you really need to look at how hard or how harsh is the discipline. What it is that you're actually trying to teach and how serious and important it is. And then the discipline you choose should match the seriousness of the issue. Okay, if you pick a really hard and harsh discipline when they do something really simple and it's a mistake versus actually doing something deliberately that upsets you, then later they do something really serious, that discipline doesn't hold the same value. So critical to match discipline to personalities and discipline to the severity of the danger or the harm or the thing that the children caused or did wrong. And then finally, for discipline to work, your children have to understand that what you did to them or what you made them do somehow ties back to what they did wrong. So critical after you've disciplined someone to talk to them, to help them understand the why did you punish them? Why did you discipline them? Why did you take them away? Because if they can't translate it to what they did wrong, they will never be able to accept that what they did is what caused that discipline or that punishment. You know, it's a really, really hard balance to get, but you have to make sure that your explanation makes sense to your child. You also have to make sure that the explanation makes sense to the other people in the house. If your spouse or your partner or whoever's raising your kids doesn't understand the punishment and what it was intended to do, then your family's not going to move forward. So critical that you set discipline based on the kid, based on the severity of the crime, and based on sort of what the norms and the rules are in the house. And remember, you have to explain the why. If you can't tell a child why they're being punished or disciplined, then they aren't going to get the message, which is, I really don't want you doing that behavior again. Okay? How do you talk to your kids? I think what you say to them and how you say it is the critical piece. You need to make them understand that they aren't the bad guy, but what they did is bad or is what you don't accept. So be very clear to focus on the action, not on the actor, not on the person. You never want to say you're a bad kid or you're so mean, I don't ever want to see you do that again, or you're an evil child or you're hateful, because they take that personally. But if you can pick out that action, explain to them why you don't want them to do it, hook that to the discipline, you'll be successful. So give it a try and see if there's a change in your child's performance.